Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial here at Crafts and Drafts. Today we are doing a macrame wall hanging. Let's go through our materials. So I've got my hoop here. This is a 10-inch hoop. There are various sizes of these, so if you want larger or smaller, you can go ahead and choose that. We carry the 10-inch hoop only at Crafts and Drafts, but if you're doing this at home, feel free to grab whatever size you so choose. Just adjust your yarn size to match. I, of course, have my Crafts and Drafts instructions. So the instructions here are a little different than our other ones because we go over the basic knots, but then we also have two styles of macrame that we walk people through. I'll be showing you one style today, and then I'll just have an example of the second style, which is a little bit easier, the curtain macrame. We've got our yarn, pre-cut these pieces to 40 inches. I like my macrame to be a little bit longer. I'm also doing the twist macrame as my example today. That just requires some longer pieces. You can go even longer if you want, if you really want to have like a nice curtain hanging down of yarn. So that's entirely up to you. Just make sure that they are long enough for what you're doing. I've got extra yarn in case I need it. I probably will need to cut a few more pieces, so I've just got it at the ready. And then I also have some optional beads that we can just kind of add at the end. I'll show you how to do that. And then I have a needle here for yarn in case I need to use it to thread through the beads here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. In terms of basic knots, again, I'm gonna be doing the twist macrame. So twist macrame just kind of like moves in one direction one way, and then you knot it in the direction the other side, and it just kind of makes this cool little twist effect. It's also probably the more difficult one of the two styles that we show. So I figured it was worth showing that one, and then if people decide to go with the simpler curtain macrame design, you know, that is entirely up to you. I've got my 40-inch piece of yarn here. I'm gonna fold that in half, and I'm just gonna go ahead and, you know, just kind of use this loop here on my fingertip you're gonna go underneath your gold form, and then you'll pull the other two strings through and then pull it tight, and we'll just kind of close these up together, pull it nice and tight. And then we're gonna bring these to the other side. And it's up to you if you want to go over or under. I'm gonna go under, and then let me just pull this to show you each individually. We'll take the end of one string, bring it up. I'm just gonna go underneath this other string, and then we'll pull it through. So it's just kind of tying like, you know, your basic knot. So this first one, there's nothing overly complicated about how to go about this. Again, we're going underneath the hoop, we're going over, underneath my initial base string, and then through again. And then we just are pulling tight. So we'll go ahead and keep these close together. So this is kind of setting our form. And now, as we add more, you'll start to see sort of that twist effect. So again, just gonna walk through one more time here. So I'm gonna start with my twist going over to the left one way, and then bring the ends over to the right. So let's go ahead and do the basic lark knot again up here. We're underneath the hoop. We'll pull our two threads through, pull tight, and now this is where we start to make the twist. We're gonna go over. So we started to the left of this initial string, and now we're crossing over to the right, and we are just going to take each of these strings and tie them one at a time. So as you may recall, I initially had my strings going like these two. I went underneath the hoop first, and we're just gonna do that same thing again. So it doesn't really matter whether you decide to go over or under the hoop, but whichever way you decide, stick with that same way. Stick with that same direction. It just gives it a cleaner look at the end. At the end, it won't, you know, either way, it's going to work out just fine. You'll still get the same twist, but I just find it's a cleaner look if you started going underneath your hoop and tying your knots in a certain way. just keep that in mind when you're going through this process so that you can stick with it. So I think this is a good point for stopping, but you can just see how nice the twist is on here. And then we can go ahead and trim our strings if we wanted to, if you wanted them to all be kind of straight. We can kind of clean up all these knots, pull your strings down a bit just to make them all more uniform. I kind of like the rough, uneven look of this, so I'm just gonna stick with it. With these types of beads, you don't really need to use any kind of like a needle to thread through. You can probably just push it on through, but it is an option. There are these like larger yarn needles that you can use if you find that just makes it a little easier, or if you're using a smaller bead. And then attaching a bead is really easy. You can just put the bead in and then just kind of take it in the other way or around the other side. You could even use this needle to just kind of push this through even. And there, an attached bead. You can push it up or just kind of adjust as needed. All right, and that is the twist macrame. So this one, again, was a little more complicated just because you do have to take into account that twist. Another one that is very popular, I have an example here, is of the curtain macrame. So this one is really just doing that lark knot that we did on the top. You just kind of do that all the way through. As you can see, this one, the example was made by putting like several strings together and making a really large lark knot. You could also do the individual pieces of yarn like I did up here and have it go just all the way across. Either way, it just can be really nice. You can add some braids and start braiding some pieces if you like. This one has a lot of like braids and beads. So yeah, it's another option. Both are beautiful. They're just, each a little different. Each have their own unique style. So thank you so much for joining, and come see us at Crafts and Drafts.